Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to the ranking you've all been waiting for. Oh dear. Today I rank the Disney live-action remakes from 1996 to 2023. So yes, at long last I am now in a position where I can rank all the Disney live-action remakes. But before I begin, I should point out how this is going to work, because my list is going to be slightly different to other people's lists. So first of all the images that you see here are of images of films that people rank within the live-action remakes. But me personally, I don't. The reason being is because even though some of these films may be connected to some of the remakes, they're not specifically remaking anything. Sequels to remakes don't really count for me. I'm only going to be ranking the films that are actually remakes. And if this is a disappointment to some of you, then I am sorry, but that's just the way I see it. I just can't rank these movies based on the fact that I don't see them as remakes. They're not remaking anything. So yeah, deepest apologies about that to those who are looking forward to seeing these in the lists, but I'm afraid they are not going to be there. But they are here as honourable mentions. I've not actually seen all of these movies. I've seen one of the Maleficent films. I've seen Christopher Robin. I've seen Cruella. I've seen Alice Through the Looking Glass. 102 Dalmatians, but I haven't seen the other ones. So apologies about that, but hopefully you will enjoy the ranking of the actual remakes. So without further ado, here we go. So there are 14 movies that are going to be in this list, and quite frankly, most of this list is probably pointless because most of these films aren't very good anyway, but let's get on with it. Okay, so coming in at the very bottom, number 14, this is not a surprise to anyone that knows me. The Lion King from 2019. Oh my god, fuck my life. This movie is fucking awful. It is fucking dreadful. This to me was when Disney went beyond the point of no return with the remakes. This was the final straw. This was where I had said, no, I've had enough of this. I cannot take this anymore. The others I could kind of tolerate. This one, no. I have a lot of admiration for the original film from the 90s, and it is my favourite Disney animated film, with very good reason. But the justification behind this remake is so pointless. It's just a shot-for-shot retelling of a story that was already perfect. It didn't need to be retold, and the medium at which this film is presented is not necessarily live action. It's a CGI remake of a hand-drawn animated film, with the same music, albeit some of the music cut down and some of the music added to, weirdly. And it makes pointless changes just for the sake of doing it, and that's what I've said about most of these films, and this is no exception. This movie is insulting. I hate it. I despise the Lion King remake. It is one of the worst remakes ever made. It's that bad. And the fact that this movie has literally no emotion really bothers me, because the Lion King original film is a very emotional film. It's powerful. So what if you want the lions to look realistic? At least have them emote, for God's sake. Jon Favreau, what the fuck were you thinking? So the lack of expressions on the characters' faces is dull. And even people like James Earl Jones, who's done this before, he's coming back and he's clearly not enjoying doing it. I don't think any of the cast seem to enjoy it. They don't give any emotions, even through the vocal performances, and that's what's really damaging as well. It's such a dull, joyless experience to watch, and you're just reminded of an infinitely better film that came over 20 years before this, and it's just shockingly bad. I couldn't emotionally connect with this film on a number of levels, and Can You Feel the Love This Afternoon? Enough said. Yeah, that's not the same as Can You Feel the Love Tonight. Let's just be honest about that. So number 13 is, surprise, surprise, Alice in Wonderland from 2010. I watched this film recently and, oh gosh, what is it with Tim Burton and remakes? What is it with Tim Burton? He just can't seem to do remakes. Why does he suck making remakes? I don't get it. Arguably, this is a film that fits Tim Burton's hands like a glove. He should be able to craft an infinitely charming and gothic film around this world. This type of world building is perfect for Tim Burton, but he wastes it. It's a wasted opportunity. This film was made purely to jump on the 3D gimmick bandwagon of the time, and ultimately the visuals are just dull. And the CG is terrible. It's terrible. It's so obvious that the actors are in front of a green screen, and it's so obvious that it's kind of borrowing the filming techniques of the Star Wars prequels. Just filming everything in front of a blue screen, green screen. It's just lazy filmmaking. Just so lazy. And the script is so friggin' convoluted. It doesn't know which timeline it wants to follow. Whether it wants to follow, you know, the first one or the second one. It tries to make out that Alice has never been to Wonderland before, but also has been to Wonderland before. And then they call it Underland as well. So, what? It makes no sense. Like, it's incoherent, to say the least. And the sad thing is, you have such a great cast, and they're all wasted. They are all wasted. The fight with the Jabberwock is kind of cool, but at the same time, this movie is so dull. It is just unquestionably boring. And again, you are reminded of a much better film that came many years ago, the original Alice in Wonderland, which at least, while wacky in its own way, had charm, and it had heart. This movie has nothing. No heart, no soul. It's just Tim Burton doing his thing, and Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter is quite bizarre. Not in a good way. So moving on. Number 12 is... oh, God. Pinocchio. Oh, God, I hate this film so much. Pinocchio is just an awful remake. The main reason why this one is so low on the list is because it just infuriated me so much. The way that, essentially, Pinocchio is not even allowed to make any decisions in his own story. He's strung along through various events, and by the end of the film, he doesn't change, he doesn't evolve as a character. How is that progression at all? And it's not enough to simply, like, end the film with, like, well, that's it for now, Pinocchio, folks. You know, it's the end of the story. No, Jiminy, it's not the end of the story, because I want to know what, you know, what then happens. You know, he doesn't even become a real boy in the end. He just saves his dad, or, well, kind of saves his dad. I don't even remember. It's such a terrible mess of a movie. The whole message of the story was completely confused. All of the sort of set pieces never linked together like they did in the animation. All the events of the film seem just remarkably incoherent. It's ridiculous. You don't get any sense of a story flowing. It's like a video game. He's jumping from one level to the next, and it doesn't flow. It really doesn't flow, and I couldn't emotionally invest in the story. I mean, despite the fact that you've got songs like When You Wish Upon a Star, it still didn't grab me. I mean, all I can say is visually, the movie's quite nice, the CGI is good, but that's it. Even Tom Hanks is bored. This is the worst performance Tom Hanks has ever given, and that's just sad. And it's not enough to simply say, oh, you know, we got Tom Hanks in the movie, we'll be fine. No, you know, when you have blatant product placement at the beginning of the film, which is like, again, Disney's way of saying, oh, we own everything, look at us, yeah. I'm just done with it. I'm just so done with it. And I'm just so bored. And, you know, the levels of humour in this film, you know, that Pinocchio, you know, sniffs a shit on the floor. That I'm not even lying. That is what happens in this movie. It's so bad. Why would Robert Zemeckis allow that? Oh, how the mighty have fallen. And then the stupid Chris Pine joke. My God. Oh, God, that is terrible. So, yeah, what else is there to say? Pinocchio is one of the worst. It's an insult. And it's a real shame because, you know, Robert Zemeckis is a talented filmmaker. Well, he was. I don't know about anymore. He's just doing this movie for the paycheck, clearly. I don't see another reason why he made this film. I'm just very grateful that Guillermo del Toro presented us a much better version of the story and a much more unique version of the story later in the year. So number 11 is one of the latest remakes, Peter Pan and Wendy. Oh, God. Peter Pan and Wendy is one of those films that's just so dull. It's so boring. All the magic, all the heart that you had in the original film just is not here. This film is so grey. It is so desaturated. I cannot tell you. I just did not like this movie. Is it the worst Peter Pan film? I don't know about that. I mean, it might be slightly better than Pan, but not by much. I just thought the acting was terrible in this film. The boy that played Peter was awful. The girl that plays Wendy is probably the best in it, but that's hardly a compliment, really, when you consider the rest of the film. Jude Law as Captain Hook ought to have been better. He was fine, but it wasn't enough to save this movie. And they breeze through the first act of the story so quickly, and they spend so much time in the Lost Boys hideout, and they tried to invent this stupid backstory with Peter and Hook about how Hook was once a friend of Peter's, and then he betrayed him, and all of this stupid nonsense, that we don't need, just changing the story way too much. I mean, Peter Pan is a story that has been done to death in various formats, whether it be book, play, pantomime, film. It's all been done before, and this version offers nothing new. It's just another bland, mediocre, by the numbers version of the story. And the Lost Boys hideout doesn't look like a treehouse. It should be a treehouse. Instead, it's an old mansion that's covered in vegetation. Very weird, very bizarre. I didn't get that. And Neverland itself looks so boring and bland. It's just a bunch of cliffs. It's just like they went to the coast of England and went to Dorset or somewhere and just filmed by the cliffs, which, fine, but that's not enough. I think, Neverland is known for being kind of a jungle environment as well. Like, the way that the 2003 film envisioned it in live action was much more, aesthetically pleasing than this version. And even the animated one from the 50s looks much better than this, and that was drawn. So if an animator can capture the magic of Neverland, then why can't you? David Lowery, you should never have been attached to this project. It was a waste of time. Anyway, moving on to number 10 is Lazy and the Tramp. Oh, God, these remakes just keep getting worse and worse. I mean, well, actually, in the order that I'm doing this, these are the ones that are going up. So, technically, this is better than the other ones. But Lady and the Tramp, the remake, another boring film. What can I say? The dogs look all digital, which is really weird. And the casting, I just didn't get. Like, Tessa Thompson as Lady? What the fuck? And the fact that they kind of misuse the characters, and the story just drags. They needlessly drag it out for 2 hours, which they don't need to. I don't buy the romance because the dogs are all digital. And the, F. Murray Abraham, he sings fine. He sings, This Is the Night. He sings Bella Notte fine, but I'm not invested in the emotion. It's a bit like The Lion King. I just can't invest in this because the dogs aren't real. And it's the same with The Lion King. It's like there's no emotion because the animals aren't real, and you're choosing not to express the emotions physically on their faces. The animators are just being lazy and just sticking the character model in where it suits them, but the actors aren't giving enough of a vocal performance emotionally for me to care. So it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. It doesn't respect the original. And gratefully they cut out the Siamese cat song. I'll give them that. That was always the most controversial scene of the original, and that probably should have been left on the cutting room floor, and rightfully so. But yeah, I would never watch this film again. I'm not even that big a fan of the original, but at least the original was passable. At least the original had charm. And this whole entire film looks so digital. Like, it looks like a video game. It looks really unnatural. All of this artificial sunlight that they place in post-production, when they've just added random sunlight to make it look romantic, and nothing about it feels genuine. And I guess we should be thankful that it was just left on Disney Plus and not theatrically released. But there we are. Not the film I would have chosen to launch Disney Plus. But there we are. So number 9 is Mulan. Wow, Mulan has made it into the top 10 of this list. Whoopee. Mulan is just awful. It's a bit better than Lady and the Tramp based on the fact that I didn't mind some of the battle scenes. They were okay. But they treat Mulan, the character, as a Mary Sue, and it really hurts this film. Wasn't the whole point of the original film that she was a klutz, she was a screw-up, and she went to war to save her father and also prove her worth? There's no character journey in this film. She's already perfect at what she does. She's already this kick-ass warrior. So the training scenes feel completely redundant. And that moment where she removes her armor and rides into battle, supposed to be this massive empowering moment, which is like, look, I'm a woman and I'm going into battle. No, it just doesn't work. Like, I just don't like the whole, the portrayal of her as a character in this film, and giving her a sister as well is pointless. That adds nothing to the story. And the villains suck. What was wrong with Shan Yu? Actually, what was wrong with him? This movie has zero heart. It's as soulless as the computer that it was made in. It really is. And the villains do nothing for me. It's just It's just Disney's, F-grade Lord of the Rings. That's all it is. It tries to be like Lord of the Rings without the heart, and it really shows, and it suffers. There's nothing to say because it is nothing. It's a nothing movie. Perhaps the music is the only good thing about it. The score, being, I think Harry Gregson Williams does the music. He's the only good person. He's the only one trying. Let's put it that way. But they cut the songs out of the movie, and I can understand that. That's fair enough. But I think, honestly, this movie made me miss Mushu. I would have liked to see Eddie Murphy, because, oh, gosh, this was really just missing a lot. It was a complete misfire, really. So, number 8 is, surprisingly, the most recent remake, The Little Mermaid. Now, this movie, I expected it to be a piece of shit. And while it was bad, it certainly wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. This movie was, it was just meh. I couldn't care less about it. It was way too long, at 2 hours 15 minutes. This story did not need to be that long. It was needlessly padded out for the sake of adding more pointless filler. But they did try to expand Ariel and Eric's romance, which I did appreciate. That was quite nice, and Eric's song was good, if a little unmemorable. But the rest of it was very lazy. The whole visual look of the underwater stuff just looked really video gamey. Javier Bardem doesn't give a shit. He's just phoning it in, as per usual. Halle Bailey is good, and maybe she's the reason why this movie's a bit higher up on the list. I do think she is a great Ariel. She's not Jodie Benson, but she does try, and I think she should be commended for her efforts. And the music was all dull and so lifeless. It just had no energy, other than Part of Your World, which was legitimately the only good song in the movie. Let's not talk about Scuttle's song, because, quite frankly, that's cringe. Utter cringe. And the character designs are just weird. Like, aesthetically, the movie just looks very strange, and I can understand why the movie's making money, obviously, because it's, for the audience that it's made for. Releasing it at the time they've released it makes sense. And also Melissa McCarthy as Ursula, just a Pat Carroll impression. That's all it is. That's all I can say, but never mind. It is what it is. It's not the worst of the series, but it's... well, let's just put it this way. The original film was far better. But I wasn't as annoyed with some of the changes in this one as the others. But it's still very poor when you look at the outlook of the remakes. It's very poor. So, number 7, Dumbo. Yet again, Tim Burton does another bad remake. Well, this one, to me, it's just mediocre. Needlessly overlong. Doesn't need to be stretched to 2 hours. Pointless human characters. I mean, I suppose that's what you get for hiring the writer of the Transformers movies. Oh, yeah, the Bay Transformers movies. The ones which are supposed to be about the Transformers. And no, they're about the human characters. This feels very much the same. Dumbo feels like a side character in his own film. And that's not great. Again, because it's Tim Burton, everything feels so gothic and dark and dull, and the saturation of the movie is, well, what saturation? There is none, I mean, the kids are quite charming in it. They're good. I mean, Colin Farrell tries his best. I mean, all these great casts like Danny DeVito, Colin Farrell, I mean, they're good actors, but they're wasted. Even Eva Green's in this movie. What does Eva Green do in this film? Nothing. I mean, the baby mine is... it's unmemorable. This movie is totally forgettable. It's just mediocre. It's very boring. You don't need to see it. But I don't think it's the worst remake, as a couple of my friends think it is. I do believe it's slightly better. It's got some better acting in it than some of the others, but the script is dull as dishwater. Tim Burton needs to stop remaking things and make his own films, because he's just proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that any remake he does, it's just not very good. So, sorry. Number 6 is a film that I've seen very recently, and that is Pete's Dragon. What can I say? It's just... I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot in this video, and to be honest, I probably am. Pete's Dragon... I don't remember the original a huge amount. I will need to rewatch it, but judging by the remake, this movie is boring. It's so boring. It's supposed to be kind of almost in a similar vein to E.T., like a boy befriending a creature of a different background, shall we say. The bond between Pete and Elliot is okay, but we really could have focused on it more. I didn't emotionally invest in the film, and when Pete's, goes to live with Natalie and her family, and there's some time apart from the two characters, I just don't care as much. And Carl Urban's villain is just pointless. He wants to exploit the dragon and just thrive off of the filthy lucre that he demands from this product, essentially. I mean, the movie thinks it's more charming than it is, but it really is just dull. I mean, even Bryce Dallas Howard can't really save it. I don't think it's offensively bad. It's not awful. I wouldn't know about the changes that are made because I can't remember the original film. But all I'll say is it's not a film I'd watch again. I watched it once on Disney Plus, and that was enough for me. Number 5. I'm surprised how high this one is, really, but it is what it is. Aladdin. The Aladdin remake was not as terrible as I imagined it to be. I do think Naomi Scott saves this movie, barely, with her performance as Jasmine and her song Speechless. I do actually quite like that. I've grown to really enjoy that. The movie itself is very mediocre. Jafar and Iago were totally done dirty, and the genie's romance with the handmaiden was totally pointless. Again, dragged out to 2 hours for no reason. Will Smith, considering how, the pressure that he was under, to take over from Robin Williams, I don't actually think you could have cast someone better than Will Smith. I think Will Smith is a pretty good guy, and he honoured it, and he did it his own way, and he didn't shit on Robin Williams, and I appreciate that. So the respect that he had for Robin was good, and it was felt. Even if the design of the genie was a bit weird for some people, but yeah. I just thought that by the time you get to the third act, you're just so bored of the story, you just don't care. You just don't care. And they changed the ending of, instead of having the snake, you have Iago turn into a massive giant bird and just chase them around Agrabah, which is pointless. But again, it's not a bad movie. There are good parts to it. A Whole New World is good, and some of the songs are quite nice, but ultimately, it's just, it's Guy Ritchie's attempt at a musical. It's very blasé, It's like he just left the cameras rolling and went to get his cup of tea and was left it in charge of the assistant directors to kind of take care of it, because, yeah, there's a real, detachment with this project from Guy Ritchie. It doesn't feel like his type of film, but that's just my opinion. It's not terrible, but it's not great. I take it over The Lion King, let's put it that way. Number 4. Now, this is where we get to the good ones. And there's only 4 good ones across the entire list that I've chosen. So, number 4 is The Jungle Book. A lot of people would rate this one higher, but for me, it's a little overrated. I do think it's good. I do think it's decent, but for me, what lets it down is the pacing. The first 45 minutes of this film are painfully slow, and I really struggle to get into it because I find Mowgli quite annoying. Whether that's just me, I don't know, but I've always found him annoying. He's just this really whiny brat of a kid. It kind of reminds me of Jake Lloyd from The Phantom Menace. Although Jake Lloyd was always known for going, yippee! Whereas Mowgli is just argumentative all the time, and it takes too long for the story to get going. Scarlett Johansson as Car was a strange choice, let's just put it that way. The cast are good, though. I think you've got to give props to Ben Kingsley and Bill Murray as Baloo and Bagheera. They are good, and I do think, Idris Elba's a bit of a safe choice as Shere Khan. They could have chosen someone a lot different to him. But the climax is good, and it is quite entertaining, and there are genuine stakes to the plot, and I did actually care about some of the characters. It was just a bit meandering at times. It could have been an hour and a half, but it was 1 hour 45 minutes. The original film was half an hour shorter, and it benefited from the brisk pace. I would have liked to hear more of the songs in the film. We only heard a couple of songs. We heard a bit of Bare Necessities, and then we heard a bit of I Want to Be Like You. Christopher Walken as King Louis, though. I do quite like him, actually. I think he's quite cool, to be fair. So it's a decent movie. It is entertaining, and I would watch this one again. But I do struggle with the first act. I think the first act is a real... Oh, gosh. It really is a real slog to get through. Number 3. Now, this might be an unpopular choice, but this is just my choice. Number 3 is Beauty and the Beast. The remake. Yeah, the remake of Beauty and the Beast. I've actually never got the hate for this film. This, to me, is actually a decent remake. Is it perfect? No. Far from it. The original is definitely better, perhaps Dan Stevens and Emma Watson don't have the best chemistry, and I know that they altered Emma's voice in post for the singing, which was a slight shame. But I do think it's got charm, and I do think they actually respected the original in a lot of ways. The character designs may be a bit strange, but I do believe the movie has heart, and they cared about what they were making. The script is decent, you know, and the added backstory for me works for this one. All the stuff regarding Belle's mother, it wasn't needed. I mean, we could have lost it, but the fact that it was there gave us a bit of context into Belle's character. So I thought it was nice. It added a little bit to what was going on, although the magical book that could transport them anywhere seems a bit pointless when you've got, you know, Belle imprisoned in the castle. If she'd have known about that sooner, she could have left, but there we are. And Josh Gad and Luke Evans make this movie for me as LeFou and Gaston. They are utterly superb in this film. They are a great comedy duo, and the song in the pub, it's just brilliant. It's a great recreation of the original one, and I really had fun with it. What can I say? I had fun with it. And the climax is engaging and enthralling, and it's a very entertaining film. I think it's an entertaining film with a great cast. Really, really great cast. And visually quite aesthetically pleasing. The Be Our Guest number is pretty spectacular, I have to say. Yes, the original's better, but this one, for me, it had enough for me to go, that was actually quite good. I can jam to that. And it's the one of these films that I've seen the most, because I just have a great time watching it. And also, I am a fan of Emma Watson, of course, because I grew up with Harry Potter, so I've seen her in that. And I thought she did a good job. I don't care what the naysayers say, I like Emma Watson as Belle. So, final two. Number 2 is Cinderella from 2015. Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella is a remarkable surprise. While not a perfect film, it's certainly one of the strongest remakes, undoubtedly, mainly because the other ones are so shit. But I do appreciate the movie's emphasis on character, and the fact that it really delves into Ella's backstory and her emotional struggles, and I think giving her emotional depth like this really does help. It does drag the film out a bit. I will say perhaps maybe the pace was a tad slow at times, and the Ugly Sisters are not utilised as best as they could be. But I thought Cate Blanchett was really good, and I thought the whole look of the production was fantastic, and Lily James is brilliant. She is absolutely brilliant. Helena Bonham Carter, though, is a bit of a weird choice for the fairy godmother, though. I would have cast somebody else in that role, and she just looked very uncertain in that role. That whole scene with the transformation is probably the worst scene in the movie. Despite the good visual effects, I just don't feel excited when I see Helena Bonham Carter in this film for some reason, but that's just me. It isn't perfect, it certainly has a few issues, but I thought to myself, wow, this is actually quite nice. It is, you know, pardon the pun, charming. With that being said, my favourite Disney live-action remake so far is 101 Dalmatians 1996. This movie came out a long time ago, compared to the other more modern films, and a lot of people forget about this one, considering the fact that it was so long ago, but I really like this film. It's a very solid remake, and in some ways, it's actually better than the original. I don't know if I do prefer this to the original. I think I'm leaning more towards this. I really like this film. I have such a good time with it. It's such a cute film. The fact that the dogs are real as well, I think, helps, and they don't have to talk for me. That's not the point. You know, this is a live-action remake. You know, they had their chance to talk in the animation. I think the story works better without them speaking, and you really understand how evil Cruella de Vil really is. Glenn Close is just phenomenal in this film. She is, for my money, the best Cruella de Vil we've ever had. You know, she is so scary in this film. I used to be terrified of her. And her English accent is perfect. And that wonderful moment where she's like, you know, it is rather amusing, isn't it? If we make this coat, it would be as if I were wearing your dog. Ha ha ha, woof woof. she does a psycho dog impression. It's brilliant. But yeah, the music score from this film is terrific. I love Michael Kamen's score, and you know, the heart of this film is brilliant. Like Roger and Anita's romance, that's a little brisk. That could have been developed a bit more. That was a bit rushed, how they just met and then they got married. It was a bit rushed how they proposed. But that being said, the cast are fantastic. Jasper and Horace, you know, Mark Williams and Hugh Laurie, you know, Mr. House, you know, Dr. House. That's a great duo. And the finale in Cruella's barn, I guess. The mansion and then the barn. Yeah, that's all really good. It does go on a bit, I will say. It does drag on for quite a while. But I do get a kick out of seeing Cruella fall into the molasses. That is really, really fun. It's such a sweet film. It has a really lovely cast and it's charming. It's easy to follow. And great performances and great music. It's a terrific film. And I think it's very underrated. For me, this is the most charming remake. And it respects the original. And there's some nods and references to the original as well. In this version, Roger is a video game designer. And I don't mind that. And the callbacks to the animated Cruella, that was very, very nice. So, I think I've rabbited on enough. So, just to confirm my final list. So, obviously, discounting the honourable mentions that I mentioned at the start, which, sorry, they're not on the list, but they are mentions. So, number 14 was The Lion King. Number 13 was Alice in Wonderland. Number 12 was Pinocchio. 11, Peter Pan and Wendy. 10, Lady and the Tramp. 9, Mulan. 8, The Little Mermaid. 7, Dumbo. 6, Pete's Dragon. 5, Aladdin. 4, The Jungle Book. 3, Beauty and the Beast. 2, Cinderella. And 1 is 101 Dalmatians. So, that's my ranking of the live-action remakes. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please comment down below. Let me know. And if you're about to ask me where would I rank the unofficial remakes, like the ones I mentioned at the start, the truth is I have no idea. I wouldn't know where to place them. Some of them, I haven't even seen the original Maleficent. I need to watch that. But I will review them all the ones I haven't seen. I think I've reviewed some of them anyway, so you can check that out to hear my extensive thoughts. But anyway, please hit the like and subscribe button for more content to come in the future. And until next time, I'm Pajak's Perspective. See you soon. Bye for now.